Let's go. So, Ed Orgeron, what a fall from grace. And look, there's so much negativity surrounding this program. So, what I'm going to do is save a huge nugget for the end of today's video that I think really matters, and it's something that Scott Woodward should seriously consider when it comes to hiring his next football coach. Now, let's talk about the now. What should Woodward do with the Ed Orgeron scenario? There was another layer to this story today.
How are you handling all this, Coach? I mean, I know, you talked about your job status a little bit and whatnot, but
Hey,
how is LSU?
Jacques, excuse me. Are you trying to get another quote for me?
No, sir.
You sure?
I'm just trying to do my job, Coach.
Good. Well, I'm going to do mine. I'm handling it great. I said that before.
Thank you, Coach.
So I like Jacques Doucet. I also like Ed Orgeron, but right now that was very awkward because I think Jacques actually does like Ed Orgeron a lot. And basically, just in you're looking at a conversation I had with Blake at Are You Serious Sports, Ed Orgeron is still peeved that Jacques released a video of him yelling at that fan about the sissy blue shirt before the UCLA game. Well, don't scream that at a fan right before the game where there's hundreds of thousands of people surrounding you, okay? So, yeah, it seems a little petty if that's what the beef is over, and Jacques' question wasn't all too bad. And ironically, that is the smallest issue surrounding Ed Orgeron right now. So, as many of you know, I like to keep it strictly football, but to me, Ed Orgeron's temper is starting to seriously affect the way he coaches his football team, okay? Right, the sissy blue shirt thing is not that big of a deal, but that's the thing. These smallest things are pretty clearly starting to get under Ed Orgeron's skin. And look, Ed Orgeron's personality is him as a fiery guy. This is him, obviously a photo of some practice footage that was released, I believe, by Tiger Details. And we did a fall breakdown of a practice. And this obviously is Ed Orgeron lighting up his defensive line with some fiery speech. So, look, Ed Orgeron's nature is a fiery guy, but that could sometimes spill over, once again, into your decision-making, including a reported temper flare-up with the LSU video staff. That's just one of many things that I've heard today, some of which are stuff that I don't think is that big of a deal, but let me just say this. There's a lot going on with Ed Orgeron right now that can seriously factor in to what he is doing right now as a head football coach. Now, there was an hour-plus long film study we released about the Kentucky game, and I spent a lot of time on it, and I got carried away saying that the whole defensive staff should be fired, but there was a play where the LSU defense did some of the most inexcusable things I think I've ever seen a defense do. I got caught up in the moment, but obviously the defensive staff should keep their job. And Ed Orgeron, this is what I would do right now if I was Scott Woodward, okay? I would pull his headset. I wouldn't allow him to make decisions right now. You don't have to fire him. I know it seems unprecedented, right? So you're saying tell the head coach that he can't coach, just have him be around. Yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying. And I know that sounds awkward, but Ed Orgeron's decision-making is so bad right now. His temper is obviously not where it needs to be. And there are so many different things that are happening negatively surrounding this program where we just need Ed Orgeron to just stop. And look, there is a long list of things that we could touch on as far as what's going wrong with this football program. Obviously, there has been an obscene amount of injuries that have happened to this football team. That needs to be examined. Obviously, that's mostly random. The LSU football team has some serious academic issues as well. with 3 of the more experienced players, John Emery, who's still out, Sonny Fanua, and John Kirkland, having academic issues. There's obviously team morale question marks, more nefarious Title IX questions that need to be asked of Ed Orgeron. There's just too much stuff bubbling over that not only has to do with Ed Orgeron with LSU football, but Ed outside of football. It's hard for me to have done that Kentucky film study yesterday and to see how the team's game plan was put together. Basically, the defense making the same mistakes they made against UCLA, which obviously is a very similar team to Kentucky, almost to a T in many ways. Schematically, their identity, good offensive line with the strong running game and all that stuff. And we basically had the same game plan, and obviously it failed miserably against Kentucky. How can you rationally think that what we did was going to work as the head coach of this football team? I don't know. I just think it's insanity. So either it's Ed Orgeron can't focus at the job at hand personally, or he can't see that this is bad stuff that we're doing right now. Or number 3, which is the worst of it all, he's so arrogant and he has too much hubris that he doesn't want to change some of the scheme things that are obviously not working, in particular on the defensive side of the ball. And that should be means for pulling his headset, okay? There's no need to address a reporter by name and put more negative press towards the university. There's no need to do what happened with the coaches show last week, which was tacky, but he shouldn't have responded the way that he responded. Ed Orgeron is a better person than that, even though if you are a fiery guy, you've got to do better. You got to have a better mentality, knowing that all this negative stuff, and each and every week there's just more stuff that's happening, and you're honestly just pouring more gasoline on the fire. And you have to keep this in mind as well. The transfer portal is open and you can go wherever you want to go now, okay? So I do think LSU needs to do something now. I really do. It may not necessarily have to be a firing, but someone does need to go to Ed Orgeron and say, look, we are going to let someone else make the decisions and you can still coach. I know that seems strange, but then again, Ed Orgeron is not simply going to quit. And I don't know what the contract says. I don't know if that would be a breach of LSU's contract on their end, but you need to do something, because right now what's happening is a disservice to the players that are going out there each and every week and putting it on the line. And it's also a disservice to all the other assistants and analysts and staffers that, this is their livelihood, that the head coach is just making a rational decision, obviously publicly and also privately, that is really hurting this program right now. Many of you know in our videos, we like to have a major twist at the end. And this is it right here. Okay, I'm going to give it to you right now. None of what I said in the first 8 to 9 minutes of this video matters if you win. In fact, a whole lot doesn't matter if you win. Okay? People don't question your locker room culture when you win. People don't question your players' buy-in when you win. And let's be honest, people care less about academics and everything else when you win. Now, that's not to say those things aren't important, but as I say on this channel, the most important thing that I want to do is focus on LSU football decisions when it comes to winning football games. And Ed Orgeron is abysmal in this category. Now, the talent of your team does matter, and LSU is lacking some talent in some key areas. Injuries and all those things do matter. First-year coordinators learning on the job, which is partially on Ed Orgeron. Some of their mistakes do matter as well. But there are a few things that coaches themselves control, okay? And one of those is fourth down decisions. Now, here's the thing we talked about yesterday, and in a deep dive we did this offseason how fourth down decision making can affect your offensive play caller in particular. But we won't go too deep into that. I want to talk about solely Ed Orgeron's fourth down decision-making as the LSU head football coach. And it's more important now as the game has become more offensive and more fast-paced. The more plays you play per game, the more decisions you're going to have to make as a head coach. And what you're looking at right now is a graph from Jared Lee. No, not that Jared Lee. In fact, this is Jared with a D. Lee is a Utah fan, but an analytics ace. And I've known Jared for a little bit, and look, I don't fully agree with this fourth down model, but I do find his analytics to be very fascinating, and I do tend to agree with this. LSU is horrible when making the right decision, when to go for it and when to punt. And I know this graph is tough to read, but I'll tell you this. LSU has had 15 instances, according to Jared's model, when they should go for it, okay? Now, before I continue, this model isn't saying your percentages to convert the fourth down. That's different. This model is simply saying the head coach should decide to go for it on fourth down, okay? So let's be clear. This is an Ed Orgeron decision alone, no one else. LSU has had 15 instances this season. They have only gone for it correctly 6 times, okay? That's not good. That is not good at all. Only a third of the time, LSU makes this very important decision correct. So against UCLA, LSU made a really bad decision on fourth down 31-20 to punt the football. And that was a clear instance of when LSU should have gone for it. But that wasn't the only bad fourth down decision that LSU made in that game. But here's what's really fascinating about this model and why it's even worse for Ed Orgeron is that he is wasting the biggest legged kicker you will ever see at LSU in Cade York. This is a guy who regularly makes field goals from 60 in warm-up, and he has done so on different occasions. And by the way, he has already made a 57-yard field goal in not the absolute best conditions. So punting the football is even more nefarious. And a really good example of this was at the end of the Auburn game, at the end of the first half of the Auburn game, where LSU had the opportunity to kick a 58-yard field goal in near perfect conditions. Now, I don't have the wind speed on me off the top, but I will say this, Cade York was nailing them from 60 in the pregame warmup. So a 58-yard field goal, which is well within Cade York's range. Well, we decided to not even give this guy the opportunity, who is the only reason why you ended up going 5-5 the year before. Cade York deserves that opportunity. And even then, whether or not you don't want to give him that field goal opportunity, let's just say you don't think he can make it, which, by the way, he can, you still should go for it. So that is, my biggest problem with the model that you're seeing, the numbers that you're seeing, is that it doesn't even take into account that LSU has such an elite field goal kicker, which makes these punting decisions even worse from Ed Orgeron. So that's the thing, is that he really, really, really is bad at this one thing. And this is something that coaches themselves 100% control. Okay? You can't completely control things that may or may not go right in your locker room. You can't completely control all your other coaches' decisions. But you can't control this. And it is something Ed Orgeron is costing us dearly. Now, don't get it twisted. It's not the only thing, but this is a big thing. And what if I told you that Ed Orgeron's worst fourth down decision actually didn't even happen this year? It didn't even happen last year. In fact, it happened in 2019 when he almost cost us the greatest team of all time with the worst punt I think I have ever seen versus Alabama in plus territory, where we only had to gain a yard with the greatest quarterback of all time, a running back who was playing out of his mind, and a wide receiver who had already converted a 4th and short in the first half. And we have, by the way, our greatest collection of play callers ever. And we decided to punt the football, which allowed Alabama to get back into the game when we could have gone for the kill shot. And that's the thing. Ed Orgeron's conservative nature on 4th down speaks to a larger cultural issue with LSU football. And there goes that word again, culture. But the data actually backs this up, and just the games themselves back this up, is that our team lacks a killer instinct. It lacks aggression. It lacks, and you can even see it in Max Johnson's play. He gets really tentative. He is fearing himself of making a mistake. Ed Orgeron gets really tentative with this decision making. We are not a mentally strong team, and part of that is because we're so daggum cowardly when it comes to making punting decisions. We don't go out there and choke the opposition. We don't go out there and finish games strong. And that has actually just been a thing that has been there during the Ed Orgeron tenure. How many times do you see this team just go out and put games beyond reach? Well, it rarely does happen, even if we do have, a favorable lead at halftime. So we just don't finish games strong, and part of that is due to the 4th down decision making, okay? And that's the thing Scott Woodward needs to do for this next head coaching search, because we've actually seen aggressive 4th down play callers actually win, and it actually make the difference. And that's a funny thing. Huh? 2 of the best coaches in the country when it comes to 4th down decision making. Now, once again, their sample sizes are smaller. Dave Aranda. Well, I won't say the other name, but Dave Aranda is one of them. Okay? And you can see the graph yourself. So comment down below your thoughts on today's video. And I do want to issue an apology. This video did come out a little bit later than normal because, well, I was on the phone a lot. Speaking to source, I don't use this word a lot, but I was speaking to, first off, some other media members that I respect a lot. Blake at Are You Serious? And Lon at LSU Odyssey. I also spoke to T-Bob for the first time in a while for about 20-25 minutes. I'll be on Off the Bench later this week. And I was also speaking to sources on and off the record earlier today as well, because I wanted to really do some digging. The reason why I wanted to do more digging than normal for this video. So a lot of you know my channel is very analysis based. I don't do like a lot of behind the scenes reporting and sources and all of that. But the reason why I did that today, to learn some of the stuff that I learned today, is to look deeper into what Ed Orgeron is like right now, because there is a major irony at the end of what was overall a successful tenure for Ed Orgeron, is that at the beginning, he was given all this praise for being willing to change, right? He was so different than his first Ole Miss tenure. He delegated responsibility. He made the most important change of the past decade of LSU football, which was opening up the offense and bringing in Joe Brady, and it changed all of our lives forever. And we should give Ed Orgeron a lot of credit. The issue, though, is we could present him all this 4th down data. We could present this idea, as you guys see in this photo, that he doesn't properly use his timeouts. We could show him all these different film studies and analysis of how his decision to go to a 4-down lineman front and the static nature of the nickel 4-2-5 that he's run. We could show him that our numbers on a yards per play basis has been so disastrous, to the point where this has been one of the most disastrous defensive runs in LSU history. We could show him all of that, and I think right now, there is nothing he would do about it. I think he is mentally checked out. I think he is ready for the next step. I think he does enjoy being the head coach of the LSU football program. And I think that's what hurts you personally. It hurts me personally because I think I'm like most of you. I like Ed Orgeron a lot. I think it's cool that this Louisiana native has taken our program to the highest point it has ever been. But let's be honest, we are below any period during the absolute lowest of the Les Miles tenure. This is rock bottom, and it sucks. And ironically, I think a lot of it comes down to Ed Orgeron just being too arrogant. I really do think so. And it sucks. It sucks. And I wish Ed nothing but the best for his future, but it is time to move on. And if I were Scott Woodward, I would look deeply into my next candidate as far as what is he like personally? Is he willing to change? Is he willing to always be open to new ideas and new data? And then obviously the next thing I would do is, assess the situation now and decide whether or not you should pull his headset and let someone else make the decisions. Or do you just let it ride it out and hope nothing else disastrous happens? I don't know. It's tough. Let me know what you think down below. That's why the comment section is there. Live stream schedules. You guys should know that by now. But if you're new, 7 p.m. Central and halftime and post-game of games. So make sure you come hang out. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! We're doing salmon tonight. Let's go.